Bachelor education in architecture is very important, but it's also very foundational. It doesn't give you like a higher level knowledge as much as a master's education would give you. And that is why we have the master's programs all over the country. Through the GATE exam, I got an opportunity to study in the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. My exposure in SPA Delhi was remarkably different. I had an opportunity to visit University of Pennsylvania here in Philadelphia, which is two states east of Illinois, and it's a very well-known university. And they had a conference where they had this kind of young researchers panel. So they selected me, so I came to that conference and I experienced American university looks like. When I arrived at an American university, I understood that while this place is not at all at all anything like where I come from, it is also a place where I might have an opportunity to explore more knowledge. So there is a huge cultural difference between an Indian academic environment being an Indian versus an American academic environment being an Indian. Beautiful libraries, world-class faculties, kind of a global competence of research production. Hello everyone, my name is Soumya Dasgupta. I am from Calcutta and presently I'm talking to you from Urbana-Champaign in USA, which is about 2 to 3 hours south of Chicago, the city of Chicago. So I studied architecture from 2010 to 2015 in what was then known as BESU Shibpur and now known as IIEST Shibpur. And my journey in architecture started in 2010, and in 2021, I'm in my 5th year of my PhD program here in the University of Illinois. So today, it's a great opportunity for me to share my experience with you, and I hope some things that I tell you might help you in the long run, or it might help you figure out what you want to do. So I'm just sharing my experience. So I will start by talking about my bachelor education in Shibpur, which was a BArch degree, a COA accredited BArch degree. And in my opinion, that education was very foundational to my exposure in architecture. But at the same time, it was also very oriented within a technical disciplinary environment. So most of the training that I got in that education was technical architectural practice, about how to draw a staircase, how to understand the plan, what is construction details. And we also had some side papers on history and theory and other issues of like human settlements and urban development and all that. But it was primarily focused in a vocational sense about architectural practice. So after having that degree, I was trained to become an architect. Most of you might be in similar programs, and at the end of the 5 years, there is an internship which gives you an opportunity to experience the industry a bit, and then you can get a job there. I did not do a job as an architect. Actually, I've never worked as an architect in any firm. I only did a 6 months internship in a major firm in Calcutta, which was a really eye-opening experience for me. After my bachelor's in Calcutta, I really wanted more exposure. I wanted to learn more. And because the bachelor education in architecture is very important, but it's also very foundational. It doesn't give you like a higher level knowledge as much as a master's education would give you. And that is why we have the master's programs all over the country. So through the GATE exam, I got an opportunity to study in the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, where I did my master's in urban design, and I graduated from there in 2017. My exposure in SPA Delhi was remarkably different from what I learned in Shibpur, Calcutta. And this is not only because I shifted from architecture to urban design. It's not only because I shifted from bachelor's to master's, but also because I shifted from Calcutta to Delhi. And I experienced Delhi as an outsider. I do not belong from Delhi, and that exposure really was eye-opening to me. So I would say that the master's education, yes, the course curriculum of urban design was extremely intense. We were a very design-intensive program. We had to work late nights and all that. Not that I justify working late nights in any way, but I had to go through that experience. But also living in Delhi and experiencing Delhi city on your own in itself was something to learn from. Delhi is a beautiful city, but it can be also a very difficult city at the same time, and it can give you different experiences. So between I also got an opportunity to study masters in IIT Kharagpur. So because I gave the GATE exam, and I chose Delhi just because I was very interested to experience Delhi as a city. Although many of my seniors had studied from Kharagpur as well, and they have also had great careers. And IIT Kharagpur and SPA Delhi, no way I am in a position to compare them. In urban design, as a course, also opened my eyes about where architecture sits in the larger city making and city development processes. It was just an initial exposure, and I understood that the world is much bigger than architecture, and it's definitely much bigger than what I learned in my architecture. So the architecture education was important, but then there was this greater exposure to how bureaucrats get involved, how planning associations get involved, what about the development authorities, what about private real estate developers, and who drives the money in the city, what role does an architect play, how is architectural practice different in Calcutta and Delhi, what is the politics behind architectural practice. These are the questions that I barely scratch surfaces in my education in SPA Delhi. In that very design intensive program, I was very much interested in research. I understood that the questions in my minds are raising every day. I'm like asking, why is the master plan like this? Why is the transportation plan not working? Why is there so much of urban poverty? And these were the questions that bothered me, and I understood that yes, one way of experiencing more knowledge can be through practice, definitely. And many of my friends and colleagues are doing great work in different firms. But there is another mode of thinking than a designer, which is of the researcher. The mode of thinking, the way researchers think and work is very different from the way designers think, although there are some overlaps. So I got interested in research because I had this initial fascination about writing. I loved writing for blogs. I loved writing for my college magazine and all that. But those were very amateurish writing. It was not serious academic writing. So I was very much interested in that. And in my second year of master's, it was the year 2016 when, Donald Trump got elected in the United States. At that point of time, I had an opportunity to visit University of Pennsylvania here in Philadelphia, which is two states east of Illinois, and it's a very well-known university, and they had a conference where they had this kind of young researchers panel. So I just submitted a very small little research work, which when I look back at it now, it seems very funny and juvenile. But they selected me, so I came to that conference and I experienced American university looks like. Now, growing up in Calcutta in 90s throughout the 2000s, we are all fed in this way or that way the American dream, right? So, I mean, some accept it, embrace it, some are protest against it. There are a lot of conversation around it, but definitely I wanted to experience what America looks like. And that was my first foreign trip. It was very exciting. And when I arrived at an American university, I understood that while this place is not at all at all anything like where I come from, it is also a place where I might have an opportunity to explore more knowledge. So there is a huge cultural difference between an Indian academic environment being an Indian versus an American academic environment being an Indian. But there is also a huge number of research resources like beautiful libraries, world-class faculties, kind of a global competence of research production. And also there are many problems of being in America as well. There is certain concerns about, the conditions around race. There are certain concerns about wages, how much money you would need to survive in United States. These are the questions that bothered me because I come from a rather modest middle class background. Of course, I have my privileges. Being Bengali in Calcutta is definitely a privilege, and being middle class is obviously certain privileges I do carry with me. But there is also this question or concern that how much it's going to cost. The PhD programs, most PhD programs in the United States, not all, support their student to a certain extent. And I applied to multiple programs. And from the University of Illinois, I got a really lucrative fellowship, which would give me enough money to not have a very luxurious life, but to have a decent life where I can do what I want, explore different disciplines and different literature and different research environments, go to conferences, discuss with my colleagues from around the world, from starting from England to Ecuador to Japan to Russia to I have had students here whom I teach, because by teaching I also employ myself here. So yes, then from 2017 I started this PhD program. I joined in this PhD program. Definitely culturally and spatially, United States is a very different place. But academically, I wouldn't say it's better or worse than India, because I am in no position again to compare it. Academic speaking, I would definitely say that United States is a more resourceful place. Here, first thing is that academic research kind of sustains on its own. It has a market of its own. Research gets published and people read research and they buy research, they pay for research, which is not perhaps the scenario in India right now. There are definitely very brilliant PhD programs in different Indian colleges, in Jadavpur University, in Shibpur, in SPA Delhi, but the amount of research, the amount of investments going into academic research in India is definitely not comparable to what goes in the United States. So, yeah, so having said that, right now in my fifth year of my PhD program, I expect to reach completion of my PhD rather soon. Due to the pandemic, definitely some of the research activities that I was planning to do was disrupted. Nevertheless, after doing my PhD, my aim is to pursue an academic career where I can teach and research at the same time. I am in the history and theory track. Like I said from the very beginning, I always thought that history of architecture, cities, theoretical discussion, deeper political debates, sometimes very difficult questions about our society and our being, always inspired me. And I wanted to work with those very difficult questions, Like some question back in 2015, when I was just an undergrad fifth year, rather seemed naive. Like, why are the Indian cities are not working as they should, you know? And now at a PhD level, these questions mean a lot more to me. Yes, Ovilash, please. To sum up what I was going through, sharing my life's experience with you, uh, if I may give you a kind of a crux of the thing that I've gone through in the last 10, 11 years, the most important thing that I have learned in my life and through the education in architecture is that the most important thing to do is to ask questions, and do not do not take knowledge like just as things being given to you. Books, lectures, videos, whatever you are encountering, always ask questions to them. That doesn't mean you have to ask, create a disturbance or anything. But if you read something, ask yourself, why is the author writing something this way? Who is the author? Where did that person write from? Why did that person write the way that person wrote? And in encountering knowledge with questions, you learn better. I mean, I at least did so. So don't take things for granted, whether it's coming from a really awesome professor, whether it is coming from a really established architect, whether it's coming from one of the most high university recognized magazines or whatever journal papers. There is no harm in asking questions and clarifying further. Asking question is something that you should encourage yourself and your friends to do with you. And then it is also important to have a somewhat plan of what I'm going to do and where I'm going to end up after a certain point of time. And this is the more practical approach. towards building your career. If I want to practice as an architect, what are my opportunities? For me personally, when I was graduating as with a BR degree, I was not satisfied with the salaries that the market was offering, at least in Calcutta. So I could also afford to do a master's program. So that's also some of the advantages that I had. Not all of my friends had that kind of position. So if I want to work as an architect, what are my options? Evaluate them. What is right? What is wrong? What offers looks good? What offers doesn't look good? Doesn't look so good? Ask those questions. And then if I want to do a master's, what would be the stream that I want to go to? You will see there are crazes about certain streams in certain period of time. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was a craze around urban design. Urban design being this kind of a very highly intellectual kind of a master's course that's taught in SP Delhi. Now there is a interest towards product design, which is also a great discipline to go to, and you probably shift your field from being an architect to a product designer. There's a lot of monetary opportunities there if you're looking to become a product designer. But definitely ask questions. Try to find people who have gone through those courses. Try to find people who have, graduated from different institutes and where they are placed. Why did they choose to do that? And then, if you are actually interested in research, do know that to do serious research and to do extensive research in an academic environment, and to make that basically your life as a research scholar, a PhD is a good place to start, and PhD is perhaps necessary place to start as the institute operates. I'm not saying one cannot do research without PhD, but if one wants to make a career within the academic environment, within the institutional environment, both in India and the US, PhDs are kind of required in many cases, in most cases. And then explore websites from all around the world, both university websites and firms websites and magazines and Instagram pages and YouTube channels. There are so much of content, but don't take anything at face value. Do ask yourself what helps you the most and how you're going to utilize what you are encountering for your career. And these are the two very simple advice that I would give. One being asking questions, the other being planning your career ahead of time. Thank you.